Alright, this week I'm gonna go over character creation. So I got like an old character sheet right here. So like a blank one. So like I'll go over it relatively quickly before we get into it. So right you got your character name. So as I go over this, I'll fill it in. So I'm going to create a character called Renarius. Renarius Ashkevron. Now that this was like the first character I played way back with second edition. So and this is probably 20 at least 23, 24 years ago. So I'm gonna write them up slightly different because that was second edition, and this is going to be a fifth edition character sheet. So right here you can see class and level. So I'm going to write him up as a fighter, and that's one of the main character classes. Now, fighters are pretty much you could say knight in shining armors would be like a perfect example of that. And I'm going to start out at level 1. And now background is stuff whether you might be like a noble, like a sort of you're aristocrat or something. So now a lot of this stuff is going to be further into the player's handbook that I'm going to eventually go on and explain, because I'm going to explain things chapter by chapter. So your character creation is first and foremost in the front of the player's handbook, and so this is why I'm going to go over that. So now most of this stuff I already know and already have an idea of how I'm going to go about it and everything. So as I get into further explanations, I'll go more into depth and everything. So this one, it just basically to show how you would create a character and everything. So I know with the background, I'm going to do a soldier because I'm with the background of soldier. I was pretty much prepared as a warrior type with my fighter class. So, and I'm going to play him as a typical elf. So sort of think of someone like Legolas in Lord of the Rings. And now alignment. Alignment is pretty much how your character goes about their philosophy and everything. So there's 9 different combinations you can do. There's lawful, neutral, and chaotic. So, and there's also good, neutral, and evil. So the gamut on the extremes would be lawful good would be a highly righteous type of person. So a lawful good character that comes to mind would probably be Captain America from the Marvel universe. And then on the other extreme would be chaotic evil, someone like Thanos from the Marvel universe. You could consider chaotic evil. Now with alignment, I am going to go chaotic good. Now with the chaotic, I don't instead of lawful. While I am good, I don't necessarily believe in all being completely lawful and following all the laws. With the chaotic good, I'm more of someone that looks at the situation as a per basis type of deal for good. So that's going to be my alignment. Now, like I said, a lot of this stuff I'm going to get further into it as we go. So now, with having what I want to do for this character in mind, I am now going to go over to the abilities right here, and I'm going to roll for the abilities. Now the method I am going to use is going to roll 4 6-sided dice, and so what I do is I roll them, and 4 of them, I add them up. I take out the least the lowest one to get and add the remaining 3. So this first one would be a 15. So now what I do is I'll roll 6 times and everything. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, and there's 10, 14 because I take out the 1. All right, let's see here. Take out the 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, so 12. And take out the 2, 12, 13, 14, 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the last one. All right, 11, 12, 13. Now, what I do with these abilities is that I'll assign them to like the 6 abilities. Now, with being a fighter, charisma isn't that important for me. So like I don't necessarily need to be a people person. So like that 9 that I rolled, I'm going to put in to my charisma. So I mark that off. And now I'm going to take my other 2 lower abilities, a 12 and a 13, put them into wisdom and intelligence, because those are like not as important for a fighter as they would be other classes. So now that leaves me with a 2 15s and a 14. So like how I want to write this character up, I want to be more of like a dexterous type character, like someone who's more like sort of like a Bruce Lee instead of the Hulk and everything. So like I'll take the one of the 15s, put it in here. I'll put the other 15 in here, and I'll take the 14 and put it in strength. So now I can mark those off. And so now, like each race has like a what's called ability modifiers. So like for instance, like the elf will have like a +2 to Dex and a -2 to Constitution, because like elves tend to be more nimble, but tend not to have like a be as hardy as like you say like your dwarves or your humans. So now I add 2 to this dexterity, which would bring that up to 17, and Constitution would go back down to 13, because like the +2 to Dex and the -2 to Constitution. So like there's a table in like the first chapter that shows like all the like the what's called ability modifiers. So like each ability will have like anywhere from like a negative numbers like to positive numbers, and they like go up and down depending on like your abilities. So like the actual like table is right here. It shows like this is in the first chapter. It shows like each one, like you can see like with the 8 and 9, it's like -1 and everything. So like this is in the first chapter. So like in the character creation chapter. So like the charisma, like as being 9, would be -1, and so like having a lot of experience doing this, I already know like the modifiers pretty handy. So but they like the table I showed, like it actually shows like the modifiers, so you don't need to like actually memorize them. So you can just sit here and like look at the table and go up and down. So like I know the the 12 and 13 are going to be +1 each. So Constitution will be +1, Dexterity is going to be +3, and 14 is going to be +2. So those ability modifiers are going to be added to dice rolls whenever like whenever you're rolling for like say like your abilities and your saving throws, or like you got like your weapons that you have like here. So like whenever you're making an attack, you're gonna like roll like a d20 for pretty much like all this, and like you either subtract or add your modifiers to that. So now like with that abilities all set, like I know inspiration we start out with 0. Don't like that's kind of like something you can do, like you don't necessarily need to get in right away, so you can kind of make that optional for now. Now like the proficiency bonus right here is like when like whatever class you start off with, like at level 1 you do +2. So the proficiency bonus is basically like you add to like your saving throws or your abilities. So like that's like what the proficiency bonus is. So like with being a fighter, I'll move down to like the actual like saving throws. Now like I said, like the classes and the races are going to be further in the book, and I'm going to get further into those once I get into the further into the chapters. So this is just basically like a quick one to show the actual character creation and how you would actually use the player's handbook to do that. So when I get into like the chapter 3 with like the classes and everything, being a fighter, I go to like the fighter description. I look at the class features, and like it'll explain on like what saving throws I get, like and like it also explain like the armor class, the initiative, and speed, and because like speed is like right here, how many feet you move. So like a lot of times like you have like like hexagonal boards that like and like you use like little figurines and everything, and like you use like each hex to move your character, sort of like what you do with board games, sort of like a Monopoly. Like you like roll a dice and like you move them on like the properties and stuff. It's the same concept, but like on like a hexagonal map that you'd move to for combat. So like and the speed is explained in like the actual race. So I know L's get 30 feet, so speed, so they can move like say like with hexagonal plates and everything. What they can do is move like usually like the hexes are like considered like a square of like 5 feet by 5 feet. So that means like I could move like for instance, like here's the hexagon, so like 30 feet, I could move 5, 10, 15, 20 type of deal. So like that's how like where the speed comes into play. So that's that way, like you know, like when it's mainly in for combat and everything. So like but now getting back to like the actual saving throws, each class has a couple saving throws that are based on like your 6 abilities here. So like the savings throws go pretty much right down the list too. So like you can see here like this same deal: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. So what I do is I'm looking at in chapter 3, I'm looking at the fighter class. Their saving throws are strength and constitution. So those are the saving throws that like I would be like proficient in. Yeah, so it's strength and constitution. So I like mark those bubbles off. So this is where the proficiency bonus comes into handy with the saving throws. So what I do is I take my ability modifiers and proficiency bonus, and that's what I get for saving throws. So like for instance, for strength, I got a +2 proficiency bonus, or a +2 for ability bonus, +2 proficiency bonus. So my strength would be 4. And like I basically go down the list, and so like since I don't have proficiency in dexterity, I just add my dexterity bonus to that, which is 3. Constitution, 1 + 2 would be 3. Intelligence is just my ability modifier. Intelligence, wisdom, and charisma would be just my ability modifier, so it'd be 1, 1, and -1. So this way, like the saving throws, I will like for instance, if I'm trying to hold up like a gate is falling, like think of like the Goonies with the Chug or whatever, like he's trying to hold the rock up as the Goonies are escaping from the pirate cave. I like to hold that up. I would do a saving throw of strength. So like what I'd do is I'd roll like a d20, and like whatever I got on the d20, I would add the +4. So like for instance, like the d20, I'd roll a d20, I would get an 8 +4. So like the dungeon master would set like a DC like a difficulty challenge, and like depending on how bad, if it was something like relatively easy, like if he would put the DC at 5, or like if it's normal, maybe put it at 10. The Goonies example like I used maybe would be like a 10, which would be normal, so 8. I rolled an 8, I would add the +4, so like it would be a 12. So I would actually pass the DC, so like I would be able to hold that rock up while the Goonies escaped and everything. So like that's an example of your saving throws. Now like abilities, it's the same concept as the saving throws. So like every time you try to use an ability, you're going to roll the d20, and you would actually add like the ability modifier that you would get. So like you get like pretty much like a couple skills based on your background and a couple skills based on your class. So like for instance, like to kind of just go through this quick and everything, say I'll say I get like acrobatics, which would be kind of like something doing like think of like your typical gymnast type of deal. I'm doing athletics, kind of like would maybe be in running and jumping and stuff like that. So there's 2, and like as like a fighter, I'm going to do intimidation. So like maybe I like bend a rod, or like I take a rod and I just sit there and bend it to try and use that like to intimidate someone, or I sit there and hurl insults at them, type of deals, and like to try and intimidate them. And like for the fourth and final one, what I'm probably going to do is I'm not going totally by the book right now, but like as an elf, I'll say like I have a ability for nature. So like what I would do, like I would do like all like pretty much for all the abilities. So like what I'll do is I'll just do the 4 that I picked. So like acrobatics on the top here, like what they do is they actually show like the skill and like what ability it falls under. So like acrobatics would fall under this ability score of dexterity. So like what I do is I take my ability modifier, add in my proficiency bonus, and that would be what my skill would be. So like when you get proficiency in it, like you also would in a sense get like a +2 or whatever, but don't quote me on that. So like I'll do just for time constraints, I'll just do a +2 like if you're proficient in it type of deal, and nothing if you're not. So like the acrobatics 2 proficiency plus the 2 proficiency bonus would be 4, plus dex would be like 3, so that'd be 7. And like athletics is based on strength, so I go up to here, the ability +2 plus 2 is 4, that would be 6. Intimidation is based on charisma, so like I said, like you're using like your words to hurl insults. Since this one is -1, I get +2, so I'm not +1, +2 for an actual proficient bonus in that. So like intimidate would be 3. Nature is based on intelligence, so 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 2 is 5. So I'm just going to do those, and you even though like you would do like all your abilities for like regardless of whether or not like you have like a proficiency in them, so that way whenever something does come out, like since I don't have proficiency in stealth, like if you're trying to like sneak by, I'd have the number ready to be able to roll the d20, do a stealth ability check. So that way, like that's a good idea to write down like everything, so that way it's right there. You know your ability modifiers, like, oh hey, I can just look it up instead of having to try to do the math on the fly. So like armor class right here is based on like what armor you're wearing, whether you're wearing just like a primarily like a chainmail shirt, or like you're getting into like the full plate armor that a knight in shining armor would use, or you're not using any armor at all. So that's what the armor class is. And like I'll do initiative right now. Initiative is what you do use to like when you start combat. So initiative is based on dexterity. So like with I go over here with dexterity, I got like a 17, so that's a +3. So my initiative would be +3. So initiative is used whenever like you enter combat. You try to find out the order of who goes first. So it's like a turn-based type of concept. So like for instance, if I go in start combat against an orc, what I do is I roll. Okay, I got a 4, and my dexterity is +3. So now I'm battling an orc, and what he would do is the same thing for initiative. And he rolled an 11, but he, like I say, he doesn't have dexterity bonus, so this is 11. So the orc would actually go first, and I would go second type of deal. That's how initiative works for combat. So like now that I got the initiative set, I'll come down here, and these 3 bubbles are for like what's known as like hit points. You can see like the current hit points, the temporary hit points, and hit dice. Hit dice is what you the type of dice that you roll for your hit points. It's based on your class. So like for instance, like being a fighter, I get a D10, meaning I roll a 10-sided dice for not initiative, but for hit points. Now I also, with Constitution, what you do, as you can see, I have a 13 Constitution, which gives me +1. That actually gives me an additional 1 hit point. So most of the stuff that I've come across, and a lot of times, like especially myself, what I would do is, as a dungeon master, is I'd max out the hit points for at least level 1. So like I take the D10, which the most you can roll on it is a 10, and I add the +1, so my hit points would be 11. So in a sense, that's how much damage I can do before I get knocked unconscious and or die. So like but you can see like right next to like the hit points is what is known as death saves. So the roll with getting knocked unconscious, when I get down to when I get knocked from 11 down to 0, I get knocked unconscious, and I have to make a saving throw, what's known as a death save. If I say the DC is like say only 10, and I roll like a 6 type of deal, that means I'd fail the first one, and I'd sit here and roll the second one 9, and then like the third one, say like I end up succeeding, I wouldn't die on the third one type of deal. So like you either fail or succeed, and usually you get 3 tries to either fail or succeed. And like that's a concept like I'll get into later. But the quick one is like if you succeed, you're kind of what's known as stabilized, so you don't die type of deal. So like so what I'll do now with having my hit points all set, I'm not worried about armor class right now. I'll worry about my weapon first. And being the type that has like a higher dexterity, I'm going to want to get into like a type of weapon that would favor my dexterity over my strength and everything. So like like I said, I'll go through like the chapters more in depth. So chapter 5 is where the equipment is. So I'm just going to go through and like I'm not worried about rolling for gold or how much like this or that. So I'm just gonna basically get equipment as if like I had like enough money to buy equipment right off the bat. So like the type of like being more of like a Bruce Lee type of fighter versus like maybe like your big Conan the Barbarian type of warrior. What I want to do is I want to use like a weapon that favors my dexterity over my strength. So like what I am going to do is I'm going to take everyone knows the rapier, like the typical fencer weapon. So what I'll do is I'll write down the rapier here for my weapon, and the attack bonus is like pretty much like what you your ability you use. Like usually for melee weapons, what you use is like your strength, but since like I'm more of a dexterity type fighter. What I using is my dexterity instead. So like the rapier has the ability what's called finesse, which lets me do that. So my attack bonus would be the +3. And in chapter 5 in the weapons descriptions, they have like how much damage the weapons do and how and what types. So like for instance, the rapier here does 1d8 piercing. So like think of like the d8 is what I'd roll for damage. So like on an successful attack, what I'd do is I'd roll the d8 for damage, and the piercing would think of piercing as like you're like taking a spear and poking someone type of deal. It's that type of damage. Now like slashing would be taking like a long sword and cutting someone, and the other type is bludgeoning, like you're taking like a hammer and bashing someone over the head. That's what bludgeoning is. So that's the weapon I take. And so like now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take armor for my character. So like I said, being more of a dexterity type of fighter, I don't necessarily want to be bogged down with like a heavy like a armor, because I want to be able to move quicker. I want to be able to move like Bruce Lee instead of Conan, for using that example. So like each armor will gives you like a base of armor class. So like you're going to pretty much start off with an armor class of 10, and your armor will move that up, and also what moves that up is your dexterity modifier. So like basically the higher the AC, the better. So like for instance, like if I had an AC of 10, if someone wanted to successfully attack me and do that damage that I like explained with like the rapier, they'd have to roll like a 10 or better on a 20-sided dice. And you'd also add in your attack bonus. Like if I had an AC of 10 and someone was attacking me with this rapier with a +3, what they do is they take the d20, they roll the 10, they add the +3 modifier to get like a 13. So with an armor class of 10, they would actually hit me, and now they would roll for damage. So this is why you want to have like as high an AC as possible. So like for instance, if I had an AC of 20 and they rolled this 10 +3 would be 13, and I have an armor class of 20, that means they would actually miss. So like how the DM would probably explain is like someone tries to take the rapier and it kind of gets stuck in one of your chainmail, like the chains in your chainmail type of deal, and now you can attack. Or like if they did succeed, maybe they use like a rapier, like they poke in between like on your arm or something, where like right at like the chainmail ends type of deal, if they were successful. So that's why like this is where AC comes into play, and like it has the ability for you to be able to essentially like either dodge or like deflect attacks from your opponents. So like what I'm going to do is like the heavier the armor, the less dexterity modifier you can add. So like for instance, if you're wearing no armor, all I would do is add in my dexterity bonus. So if I was wearing like say like a full plate mail, I would only get the armor class bonus from the plate mail itself. I wouldn't be able to add into my dex modifier. So what I'm going to do with the armor is I'll write down that I'm going to get what's known as studded leather. Now that gives me in the whole, in chapter 5 they have like the whole table right here where it shows like how much you can get like per armor. So like I said, like with the full plate mail, you only get like an AC of 18, and you can see you don't add any of your dex modifier. With like kind of your medium armor right here, you can add like a max of +2. So since I have like a dex of +3, I'm going with the studded leather, so I can get the 12 base for AC, plus I can add my full dex modifier in, which would give me an AC of 15. So now like getting back to someone trying to hit me, what they would have to do is they have to use like a hit, do a 15 or greater on a 20-sided dice, and so uh, to increase my AC even further, you can see I'm going to pick up myself a shield as well. So that will give me an additional +2 as well for the AC. So I'll write down that I have a shield. So now instead of a 15, I have a 17 AC. So now instead of rolling a 15 or greater, they have to roll a 17 or greater to be able to hit me. So this is the basic for what the character for character creation. Now yeah, there's also, I'm not going to get into it until the further chapters, because I've already been going on long enough with this. But they do have a whole section on personality traits, kind of your quirks, and how you get further in depth on how you play this character. You got ideals, maybe I want to have an ideal of that I want to protect the forest and everything that my clan or tribe or whatever of elves lives in, and a bond would be something I have maybe a bond with that forest and everything. So and also have a flaw. Maybe my flaw is that I tend to look down on humans, being an elf type of deal. That could be a flaw. So yeah, that's the stuff that I'll get into in the further chapters. So going over here, you got the passive wisdom, which is perception. So you'd basically with the wisdom would be basically a +1, as you can see here with having 12 +1. So passive wisdom would be the perception, you're walking through the forest, using Lord of the Rings as an example. Gimli's I have the ears of a fox and the eyes of whatever, and I can see and hear whatever, and then all of a sudden the elves point arrows directly in his face, type of deal. So that would be an example of someone failing the perception check, type of deal. So that's how you would use that. So that basically lets you how well of aware of your surroundings you are, type of deal. So here you would also write down yeah, any other proficiency you have in a language, is for instance, being an elf, what I'll write down common, which would be kind of the common language that the races would use, for instance, they usually would say for instance the common language in America would be English and everything. So even though there are other languages Spanish and French and Italian and all your European languages that are spoken as well, but common would be the one that's known that most races would speak. And since I am an elf, I also know the elven language. So I've written down the languages I know, and so here underneath the equipment, it's it has stuff that you equipment, you write down okay, I have a backpack and maybe an explorer's an outfit for clothing, and I'd write in how much money I have, and there's with the money it starts off at from the lowest to the highest, it goes the copper pieces, silver pieces, electrum pieces, gold pieces, and platinum pieces. So it'd kind of be in a sense using American currency, you'd have pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and dollars type of deal. That's how you'd put your money down. Over here you would actually put your features and your traits. So features and traits would be stuff that you get from your class and your race and everything. So to kind of go over that quickly, I'll go into chapter 2 with the race, and I'll go the elven traits and features. For instance, when I was doing the abilities, the elves get a increase of 2 to the dexterity. And just looking at this real quick, instead of the -2 to Constitution, here it doesn't say like you get any negatives, but I'm gonna leave that for now because that's what I'm used to and everything. So like and it also has like the size, like there's the size is what's like there's different ones, like you'd have like a small creatures, like maybe like your halflings, like the hobbits from Lord of the Rings. They'd be considered small because they tend to be shorter and more lightweight, versus like maybe like your elves and humans, like sort of like Legolas and Aragorn. They'd be known as what is medium sized. And like it goes even further up in size, like something like gargantuan would be like your dragon Smog, and that'd be something like a gargantuan. So those are just examples of some of the sizes. So like and it also talks about like the speed that I talked about earlier with like and base speed for like the elf is 30 feet, like I said. They and then getting into like the actual like stuff, they like elves have what's known as dark vision. It lets them basically see in the dark, sort of like almost like a night vision type of deal. And like they also have known what is keen senses, and that what that does is it gives them like a proficiency in the perception skill. So coming over here with the perception skill, I'd actually get a proficiency that in that being an elf. So like those are like the traits that I get. And now going into like the next chapter on the classes, and so the chapter 3 classes, I'd get into like the traits for the. I'd actually look in like to the I'd move, go through the pages and flip to like the traits that the fighter would get, and like traits and or features. So like the features, which are like the class explanation for these, are like what's known as like uh, being level 1, I get fighting style, and I get what's known as second wind. So like a fighting style would be like the type like I can either get like I flip the page to look at the the different like types of like fighting styles that like I'd want to get, like so being like a dexterity based one, there's this like one that says dueling. It says like when wielding a melee weapon in one hand and no other weapons, I can get a +2 to damage roll. So like for like so like that one is good. So like in a sense dueling, so like the +2 damage, what I do is like I say on a successful hit and I roll damage, what I do for like I'd come to my weapon, I'd roll a d8 for like a damage. I would then add my strength modifier to the damage, which is +2, and I'd add that fighting style dueling would give me an additional +2. So like what I do is like I roll what's known as a d8 for damage after a successful hit. I just rolled a 4 for damage, so like the dueling would give me a +2 on that, and which would bring it to 6, and the +2 strength would bring it to 8. So I'd be able to do a total of 8 points of damage on that roll. So that's how that works. And then like the second wind is something that lets me regain hit points, like so I can use that to roll a 10-sided dice and say I just lost, say I just got hit for 10 points of damage and I'm down to 1. I can use the second wind to regain hit points. So like for instance, I just rolled a 7, so I'd be able to regain 7 hit points with that feature. So that would bring me back up to 8. So that's what the features do. So like now each class has slightly different features, because like these two are like what the fighters would start off with. Now like your different classes like wizards, or like even your clerics who cast healing spells would have different ones. So like in future chapters, what I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going to go like through each chapter and go like bit by bit and explain some of the the differences and everything. So like the next chapter is going to be like on the races. So like for instance, like how I wrote this character up as an elf. I'll further explain like the elves and like also explain the dwarves and the humans and all the races that like are in the player's handbook. And then I'll move on to chapter 3. So I'll basically with the chapter 3 is the classes. So I'll move on through the book and everything. So this was the first chapter to get kind of like a quick overview on how you create characters. So like I'll go like going through the further chapters. It'll get more in depth on how you would like so you can get better ideas of like each of the classes and the races and like the equipment that I showed. So like this was like the first chapter. So like that's how you basically create characters in this game. So like with the starter set, you already have all this stuff pre-made, so that way you don't necessarily have to do this because like with the starter sets, like you have this stuff all set, so you can just basically pick up and run with it. So like next week it's going to be in chapter 2 on the races.